Thanks a lot. So thank you for inviting me. So in this presentation, I'm going to talk you about imec-ichange program and our study on stress. So first of all, imec is a world-leading R&D, and we are mainly famous in the semiconductor fields and in digital technology. The main location, the headquarters of imec is in Belgium, in Leuven, but we have office and location all over the world. Why I'm talking about imec and I am here? Because imec has an office at the high-tech campus, and this office was installed there in 2005 for a joint project together with the TNO in the building that then was called the Holst Centre. And that vision in 2005, together with the government, was to create an R&D and an open innovation center that would focus mainly on integrated circuit, low power circuit, and flexible electronics. So at that time, the Holst Centre in the imec specific vision was about connected health, and so developing a huge set of wearable sensors, in particular working on low power technology and also of multi-sensing platform. And then in 2007, there was the iPhone that basically opened up a lot of opportunity to connect also these sensors and to develop more fancy and also complete application. So this is one of our, these are a set of our success stories, so from 2005 up to today. And what is, among others, what is a winning factor of our strategies is our validation and our collaboration with the clinical partners. And the idea is, as I said, to develop prototypes that another company can bring to market, and we can help them also to speed up the process of medical approval. So, for example, we have developed this patch for biotelemetry, and we have helped them to reach the FDA approval. Together with TNO, we work with flexible, we went from flexible to stretchable electronics. And we also support Samsung in developing this platform, which is the SIM-band, that is also a research platform that is used, at that time was used, the objective was to have a device that would measure blood pressure at the wrist, and nowadays the device is spread all over different centers. Let's say that now is not, we are not directly anymore connected to that, but what we did at that time was really helping them to build this, all the electronics and to make preliminary testing on signal quality. And then, of course, we have our EEG headset that came also to market and also was approved by PMDA in Japan. But we are now moving up to the value chain, and in particular, we are deploying different sensors in the city. There is a project in the city of Antwerp in which we deployed a lot of air quality sensors. And also the idea is to connect also wearables and to measure, for example, stress in the city or well-being inside the city. Another line is understanding how we can make flexible electronics easy to produce. And the line of research, the program of research that I'm going to focus today is about behavioral change. And in particular, this program is called imec-ichange. So why we are focusing on imec-ichange and why this name? Because this is how we see the future. So we would like to see ourselves until the end of our life healthy and in good condition. So we decided with this program to focus mainly on preventive health rather than cure or treatment. We also do that in part for monitoring purposes, but the idea, the core idea of the imec-ichange program is to work a lot on preventive health. And of course, this is a challenge because one of the behavior is a big health determinant together with the genetic predisposition and also environmental condition. But behavior is also so difficult, and it is incredible how many of the non-communicable disease, so chronic disease, could be reduced by solely changing behavior. And we are talking about behavior in physical activity, for example, or diet, or use of substances and or alcohol abuse and smoking. So what we think is going to be the future is the use of digital technology, of data, to create digital phenotype, so to understand how people behave in terms of their also in terms of their physiology, and create personalized models that allow us to, for example, predict stress, predict craving, and in a second phase identifies, together with contextual information, what is the right moment for an intervention, in which moment a person is more prone to be proactive towards behavior change. So our way of working is having an interdisciplinary team. So our team is here in Eindhoven and is mainly focused on development of the sensors and also on the data science aspect. We have another part of the team that works on the whole infrastructure in Belgium and also the app development. We have sociologists in Ghent, at the University of Ghent and Antwerp. And so together we develop clinical trial, and we try to validate in field with living labs different experiments. And interesting things, we have a platform which is an infrastructure that allows to do experience sampling. Through this platform we can connect our sensor and we can send just-in-time messages or notification, and this is very useful when we run, for example, clinical trial, in which we like until now, for example, notification were sent randomly to people to answer, for example, question about their state, their emotion, or their diet. In this case, we can trigger by events when is the right moment to answer, send notification to a person in the phase of the clinical testing. And of course, from our side, the latest sensing platform that we use are a patch, an EEG system, but mainly the imec.ichange program in the last year is focusing on a chill band. We call it chill band because indeed it's related to the stress, so keep chill. And it's a chill band plus because the previous version had only accelerometers, so as a sensing technique had sensors as accelerometer, temperature sensor, and GSR sensing. This device also embeds the PPG, so we are able also to read heart rate. And what is the gain of our platform if we compare it to the existing one in the market? Is that we can provide directly raw data to the users, and in the specific raw data to the researcher to build their algorithm, to understand better the signal, and also to develop signal quality algorithm. And of course, to close the picture, there must be a mind, there must be a set of tools that we use to interpret the data and to build our model. So at Eindhoven, we are also strong in the machine learning aspect. So currently our focus is on mental health, and we look at mental health in different kind of field. So for example, as I was saying, craving for food. So we look at eating disorder, but we also look at smoking. We are just in 2007 we closed this study which was based on stress on the workplace, in which I'm going to talk today. But we have many other parallel tracks that also look into chronic depression or children with psychological problems, personality disorder, and so forth. And also there is an aspect of the injury, how and we work with also the University of Erasmus with a patient with stroke, how understand how stress can play a role also in the rehabilitation practice. So the SWIT study was born out of this big problem of stress in the workplace. These are statistics that come from the Belgium side. So 1 of 10 employees in Belgium develop burnout, and this implies cost for the society and also long-term cost for the personal health of the person. Yes. And if these are data that I took from the European Community website, in which indeed it's incredible the amount of cost, the cost that is associated to stress, that can be direct cost or indirect cost, and yeah, it's just huge. It's incredible to count. But in reality, if we go back, what is stress? Stress is just a physiological response to events that are threatening. So it is good to have this physiological response in order to react in a proper way towards threatening events. But when stress becomes a problem, when we are not able to cope anymore with that, with this threatening situation, when stress is becoming frequent in our life, and when the damage that stress has on our physiological system can be, let's say, almost unrepairable. So if we look at what literature has done in the measurement of stress, we have questionnaire, so self-report of stress, which are very useful and very easy to administer, but sometimes are really based on personal feeling, and they can be time consuming. They need to be repeated multiple times in a day. They are not quantitative. And then there are also more interesting techniques that are based really on measuring the hormones that is released in the body in stressful situation. Among many, the cortisol is the main stress hormone. The cortisol also requires a specific treatment, in the sense that is based on biochemistry, so you need a lab test to extract information, I don't know, from the saliva or from the urine or from the air. So we cannot really see this as a measurement that is done in a continuous way. What we see the value is in the wearable, of course, so we are not the only one that sees this. Many people are working on the use of wearable devices for detecting this physiological event in a continuous and objective way. But so far has been a little bit unclear which one of the signals are the most relevant to detect stress, physiological signal. So the idea of the SWIT study was indeed the one of collecting a large amount of data on people in a workspace in a continuous way. So here I put the timeline of our protocol. This study, now I'm very open about this study because has been recently accepted for a publication in Digital Medicine, so you can have all the details of the study. So in a period from 2015 and 2017, about 1,000 people underwent this study in 11 different companies across Netherlands and Belgium. So the study started on Thursday and finished on the Monday. The people were wearing both a patch for measuring ECG and activity at the chest, and also our chill band. In this case, it was the previous version, as I was saying, of our wristband device. There was an intake form in which people had to fill data of their baseline condition and also some standard tests related to the perceived stress. And then day by day, every day they had to answer to at least 12 times a day about their feeling of stress in the last hours, and also associated to some activity or drink intake of coffee or other substances. So the people were carrying the mobile phone where we had this EMA, ecological momentary assessment, and they also had to do some other tests, and we use also some signal from the mobile phone, like the voice, the noise recording, or the illumination of the location, to get some more information on the context. So here we have, I reported some numbers. So this is one of the largest data sets on the stress in free living using wearable data. So we have 1,000 subjects, 11 companies, 5 terabytes of data, 23,000 self-report of stress, and 120,000 hours of psychological data. So it's kind of a massive data set. Now I'm going to tell you how we are using it, what are the preliminary results that we see, but what is also the potential of this data set that I hope is going to attract you. Please tell me if I'm going in time.
Yeah, you're still
okay. Okay, that's good. So as I was saying, when we talk about wearables and the use in free living, we always have to look at the signal in so we cannot take the signal and just apply a machine learning algorithm or a fitting algorithm. We have really to look at the signal and see if we are reading something that makes sense. Because in free living, we don't know how people use the device. So we have to be sure that the signal at least are in range, they do not contain artifacts. So the first thing, the first great investment of our effort is in developing signal quality indicator and filtering noise from the signal. So this is the first step that everybody should take when you look at signals that are collected in real life. Then, after cleaning of the signal, we've used the physiological data to build a model of stress. This is only one model of stress. We are developing different ones because we noticed that depending on the person, some people have better responses in a certain signal, for example in GSR, than others. For example, other people get more aroused with their heart rate response than with the GSR. So you need to take account of this diversity among people. This is a nice lesson that we learned that was already more or less known in the lab, but we could see that also in the free living environment. So this is just an example of the continuous score that we can provide about the stress level. What was interesting of one of our approach is that so people have to feel about 12 times a day to score if they were stressed from 0 to 5, so no stress to extremely stress. And then we split this range in three levels of stress, so no stress, moderate stress, and moderate high stress. And we fit the physiological information over that last hours into a random forest classifier to build a model of stress that could predict when a person could get high level or low level of stress. The performance of this random forest were not so big. We saw, for example, a 0.3 F1 score, but at the same time we thought, okay, it is not very accurate, but let's have a look what's happening in there. So what we did was split the groups of people in terms of their performance respect to the classifier. So for example, we had a group in which the classification was very good, another group in which was moderate, and another group in which was completely low classification. And we had we made an investigation on the characteristics, what was happening, why in those people the classification was not working. And so what we notice in the signal is that for those people that had high performance, the differences that were between no to high stress in their physiological were very, very big. So it means that a person that usually it is not stressed, when there is a stress event, tends suddenly to jump to another physiological state. And so somehow it's better for the algorithm to be able to predict this jump. For the people in which we saw that the performance of the algorithm was not very good, we noticed that this jump was not so high. So when they had to report about their stress level from being no stress to being high stress, their change in physiology was very small. Okay, noticing this, we went to analyze what was their self-report of stress. And we noticed that people in the low performer groups reported their stress in the intake questionnaire to be much higher than in the people in the low performance group. And this was the same, for example, for the sleeping questionnaire and the depression scale. So from a data analytic perspective, this is what we observed, and then we start to think about some interpretation of this insight that we found. So our interpretation is that people that are stressed, so are declared to have a chronic symptoms of stress, they also have blunted physiological responses. It means that if I am generally stressed and there is a stressor, in my physiology it's not going to change a lot when there is this stressor because it's already in a higher state. While if I am a person that I'm relaxed and there is a stressful situation, my physiology is going to change a lot because usually I'm in a baseline state. Of course, we need to corroborate this data with data coming from the clinic, and this is what we are also doing with the University of the KU Leuven. We are working now with people with depression. But this was a nice finding from our data set when we develop models that are only based on physiology. Then, together with the University of Ghent, that is also part of the imec-ichange program, in particular the EID lab, they were using our data from the smartphone to detect if it is possible to build only algorithm for stress detection using voice or location or usage of the mobile phone. And of course, they got a kind of a trivial results in which people result to be more stressed during the week than during the weekend. But at the same time, it was still nice to see that we can see that by this information without any, that this information just emerged from the data. So this is what we have done so far. I'm going to give you some direction on what we are going to do with this data set. In particular, the idea is to be able to build risk profiles. So we have this group. We cannot yet do personalized detection because we only have 5 days. We would need a longitudinal collection of data. But at this stage, we want to see if there are a group of people that have a similar physiological response or they have similar behaviors that can indeed be grouped together. And for each one of these, one could think about a different plan or a different strategy of intervention. For example, imagine that we have this 4 group of stress, from low stress to high stressed, people that usually do not have stress symptoms to people that constantly have stress symptomatology. all these groups may exhibit different and also similar behavior. For example, it can be that the person is very healthy, but is a all, or it can be that a person that is stressed and is also all. So it means that they share the same behavior, even if one person is healthy and the other person is unhealthy. And so we want to discover all these links to be able to understand which feedback can be shared among different groups. So at the moment we, for example, are profiling people in our data set, and we are linking these profiles with population trends. For example, here you see how the report of emotional well-being was positively correlated with the energy, and this also correlates with the number of sport hours. So we are basically aggregating even more the data and trying to connect more information, which goes on information on lifestyle, medication, but also we are going to link some information about diet, about activity, because also in this case it can be that not every person that likes sweet is obese. So this is the main core sentence, that we can like sweet but not necessarily be obese. So we share the same behavior, but one is healthy and the other is unhealthy, and trying to understand how can I use this commonality to give a positive feedback to a person to change behavior. And we are also looking into we are also looking into stress responses while smoking in free living. So this is an example, and this is an example of smoking events in free living for 25 subjects. These are several smoking events in 15 minutes before and 15 minutes after. What is nice is that we are seeing exactly the same pattern that is seen in literature, that says usually after smoking you have a rise of heart rate, and we see that also in the real life. At the same time, we see that there is a diversity across people, and this diversity we are going to investigate if it varies from the context, if it varies from the morning, from the day, from the characteristic of the person, and so forth. So, as a closing message, we want to go beyond what we have done so far with the SWEET study. There is still a lot to investigate, because we have data about sleep, we have data about gastrointestinal symptoms, other information about context. So we really need to enrich, to get more insight out of this data set, and trying to understand what are the missing pieces, what else that we need to investigate, also to create a good business model, because at the end of the day we need to be able to use the results to create values for the community. And that's what I want to say, that we are here, we can create a better future with the digital technology. I invite you to visit our website and also to reach out if you want to collaborate with us, or if you are interested in mining our data set. So thank you for your attention. And